I heard there was a story doing the rounds in the Brady household. This one. It's Mole's star, which I know you've been reading to your new baby son. I decided to have a look at this, Brady, and to see if it was appropriate, shall we say. So, yeah, I thought, should we have a look? So it's basically about a mole who looks up at the stars and decides to sort of basically take them all and put them in his burrow, which I'm not really sure about this. So let's just start reading it, shall we? So I'll read it like Jack and Nori, right? So Mole's Star by Britta Teckentrup. Mole lived deep under the ground. He loved his cosy home of burrows, dens and tunnels, but sometimes he felt a little lonely in the dark. Every night, Mole popped his head out of his molehill to say hello to the stars. He sat on his favourite rock, gazing at the beautiful twinkling lights in the sky. One night, as Mole sat on his rock, he saw a dazzling shooting star and quickly closed his eyes to make a wish. We've all done that, right? Actually, I haven't, because I've never seen a shooting star, but that's another story. I wish I could own all the stars in the world, he whispered. So let's think about this. So what can Mole actually see? So these stars that he's claiming to want, what can he actually see? Well, I think moles are pretty blind, so I'm not sure he can see any stars. So maybe he's talking about all the stars. By last estimate, the number of stars in the observable universe is about 200 billion trillion stars. Roughly about 100 billion in each galaxy, 100 billion to 400 billion in each galaxy, and there's about 2 trillion galaxies, okay? So that's a lot, right? That's a lot. I think that's too many. I think that's greedy. What I think we should focus on is the mole's actually after roughly the number of stars that a typical human or any creature on Earth can see. There's about 5,000 of those. So typically a human, if say you can see up to what we call the brightness of the star that goes up to about magnitude 6, that's roughly about as far as humans can see. Maybe a little bit further, but that's roughly about the sort of dimmest star that we can see. And there's about 5,000 of those that are visible on Earth, okay? So that's probably, I've got a little database of them here actually. It's a database of the brightest stars in the sky, you know, things like the Yale Bright Star Catalogue, but there's a few others in there as well. And this includes all the stars that we can definitely see. Usual suspects in there, like Sirius, for example. Where else is there? We've got Vega, which is, you know, a very bright star. Rigel here, I think that's one of the nearby ones, right, in Alpha Centauri. So, you know, so these...
I see Betelgeuse there.
It's Betelgeuse there, yeah, that's right, yeah. So we've got the usual suspects, but a whole bunch of others as well. I filtered this to just only consider those whose magnitude is 6 or less, and so that's the brightest ones that humans can definitely see. As I said, if you've got a particularly good eye, you might see a few more, but let's not worry about them, because we know Mole doesn't have a good eye, okay? Mole wants all the stars, okay? So when Mole opened his eyes, he couldn't believe what he saw. There were ladders all around him, leading up to the sky. So these ladders, what are these? So these ladders, if you look at the picture, Brady, these ladders are going up to all the stars. So I try to figure out, okay, so we've got all these ladders, and they're going up to all the stars that we're saying, these 5,000 stars that at least humans can see, okay, right? So I looked at my database and I sort of said, well, okay, how far are these stars away? How much ladder do I need? Okay, so this database includes the distances to all those stars that we're talking about, all those 5,000 or so stars. And the total distance in light years that you would need of ladders to reach these stars, it's about 786 million light years. It's quite a lot of ladder, right? I decided to think, okay, can we make these ladders? These ladders that are going up to all the stars, right? Can we make them all? So I thought, okay, what should we make it out of? Well, we're going to need something light, I think. So I said, let's go for balsa wood. Right, so balsa wood has a density of about 0.1 gram per centimetre cubed. I checked and you can get balsa wood down to about a diameter of about 0.2 centimetres, you know, your sort of rods of balsa. If you put all that together and you try to build your ladders with rungs, you know, sort of every so often, then typically I think you're going to need about 10,000 billion kilograms worth of ladder. Actually, the exact number is about 9.9 times 10 to the 21 kilograms. Now, it might sound like a lot, right? It sounds like a lot of balsa wood, right, that you need to make these ladders. And you're thinking, no way Mole's going to do this. But actually, this is a lot less than the mass of the Earth. It's about 1,000 times less than the mass of the Earth. The mass of the Earth is about 6 times 10 to the 24 kilograms. So roughly about 6 million billion kilograms. So it's about 1,000 times more than the weight of these ladders.
So ladders going to the 5,000 or so stars we can see, if they're quite flimsy and made of balsa wood,
yeah,
weigh much less than the Earth.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. I was really surprised by it. So I thought, okay.
Did you double check that?
I've double checked. There's my code, Brady. It's double checked, triple checked. Where's the ladders? Total ladder heights. Here we go. Total ladder. Yeah, I mean, it's just the mass of the Earth is big. This is what it is. The mass of the Earth is really big. I think that's the bottom line. It's the mass of the Earth that's big.
But the Earth is small on the cosmic scale. It's a speck of dust we forever hear.
But these ladders are quite flimsy, not very compact. You know, they're just flimsy ladders that go, and then we've got this huge whole Earth that's roughly spherical, which is a really efficient way to store stuff in terms of volume. Okay. I was really surprised. I agree. I actually told Renata about this, my wife, right? I said, she was like, really? She goes, is there enough carbon? That's a good question. So I found there's something called the Deep Carbon Observatory, which basically, you know, they're worried about how much carbon there is. And they've done an estimate for how much carbon there is on Earth. Well, it's not quite enough. It's not that far short, but it's not quite enough. It's about 1.85 times 10 to the 21 kilograms. So that's 1,850 billion kilograms of carbon on Earth and in the Earth. So there's not quite enough.
Is that assuming balsa wood's just made of carbon?
Yes, it is.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, most of balsa wood is actually empty space, especially just air. But actually the heavy stuff and what's given balsa wood its weight is probably mostly carbon. So yeah, I mean, there's not enough carbon on Earth. But it's not that far short. It's about, you know, roughly, what's that, a factor of maybe 5, just under 5 different. So it's just not quite enough. It's annoying. So mole, you can't make this out of balsa wood unless you're going to start going off to other planets to collect your balsa wood. You're not going enough on Earth. So okay, let's make it out of carbon fiber. So we're going to make these ladders out of carbon fiber now. Now carbon fiber is actually more dense than balsa wood, but of course it can be a lot thinner. Okay, so it's about 2 grams per centimeter cubed is its density, but you can get the diameter of a strand, you know, of carbon fiber down to about 1,000th of a centimeter. So you can get a lot thinner. Okay, now we're not going to worry about whether Mole can actually climb this at this stage, but we can get much thinner ladders, okay, and we can try and rebuild. So how much is ladders made out of really thin carbon fibers going to weigh? Well, I reckon it's going to be about 3.5 times 10 to the 18 kilograms. 3.5 million trillion kilograms. Now, that's way less than the mass of the Earth, and actually, it's less than the mass of carbon on Earth. So there's enough carbon on Earth to make these carbon fibers. But there's a catch. Okay, so we could, in principle, on Earth, make these carbon fiber ladders go into all the stars, right, that we can see. But the problem is there's not enough surface carbon. Okay, so the amount of surface carbon, according to this Deep Carbon Observatory, is about 4.35 times 10 to the 16 kilograms. So that's 43,000 trillion kilograms. That's the amount of surface carbon. So the carbon in the air, the carbon in the land, the carbon in the oceans. Okay, so there's not enough of that to make your carbon fiber ladders. To make your carbon fiber ladders, you're going to have to get deep into the Earth, right, into the Earth's core and start getting the carbon out of that. And okay, that's going to be tricky, but in principle, if Mole can do it, he can make his carbon fiber ladders go into all the stars. Okay, carry on.
Job done. What does Mole do next?
Mole didn't think twice. Okay, he scurried up and down the ladders, collecting the stars one by one and carrying them home. Okay, Mole, now we need to think about this, right? So Mole is now running up and down these ladders, of which we need to remind ourselves, they are, in total, 786 million light years high. How long is this going to take him? I feel like it's going to be quite a long time, Brady. All right, so I looked it up. So how fast do moles travel? They travel at about 6 kilometers per hour. So given that he's got to go up and down the ladders, right? And let's suppose he's doing it at 6 kilometers an hour, which maybe that's a bit of being a bit generous because frankly, he's going up, right? So, but okay, we'll use that number. It's going to take him, Brady, 280,000 trillion years. So that's 2.8 times 10 to the 17 years. That's a long time. That's a very long time. That's much longer than the age of the universe. It's certainly longer than the lifetime of a star, right? So the star lives for about 10 billion years. This is way longer than that. So I don't think this is practical for Mole to be doing this way, right? He's going to get to these stars and they'll all be dead. So what's the point, right? So I think Mole has to find another way to travel. So I looked at it. So I said, okay, maybe he could travel on like let's say, the Apollo 10 spacecraft, very fast, one of the fastest spacecraft ever made. That goes at about just under 40,000 kilometers per hour. If you molded it using the Apollo 10 spacecraft, it would take him about 43 trillion years. That's still not enough. Stars are all still going to be dead. So then I went, okay, what's the fastest spacecraft we've ever made? Not necessarily crewed or mold. That's the Juno spacecraft, okay? That can go at 365,000 kilometers per hour, which I frankly think is amazing. But that's still going to take you, or take Mole, 4.6 trillion years to do this journey. This is just way too long. All the stars are going to be dead. Well, not all of them. We might get to the first couple, but that's, it's no good. Okay, he needs to do something beyond the technology we have available, right? So he's going to have to start going close to the speed of light. This is just no choice in the matter. I crunched the numbers on this a little bit to say, right, how fast is he going to have to go to get to these stars in his lifetime? So moles can live between roughly three to 6 years. 6 years if they're lucky, but they normally clock it around 3. Okay? So here's what I figured out. So if mole travels within 1/10000000th of a billionth of the speed of light, so really, really close to the speed of light, within 1/10000000th of a billionth of the speed of light, he will be able to go up and collect all the stars in around 2 years, 4 months.
Travelling at like 0.9999 speed of light.
Within 1/10000000th of a billionth of the speed of light, just shy of it by that fraction. So you might say, well, how does that make any sense? You've got to do 786 million light years. Okay, so this is where relativity comes in and starts helping us, and helps Mole actually. So we're waiting for Mole. He's going to collect these stars. Now, for him to collect all those stars, he's got to go 786 million light years there, 786 million light years back. In total, it's going to take him about 1.6 billion years. As far as we're concerned, we're going to be waiting about 1.6 billion years here on Earth for him to go and get these stars. But Mole is traveling super fast. So time ticks differently for him because of relativity. We talked about this with Usain Bolt before, if you remember, Brady. Right? Well, Mole is going a lot faster than Usain Bolt. He's going very, just shy of the speed of light because of the way time changes its speed for Mole. He would actually complete this journey in like I said, 2 years, 4 months, which is just within his lifetime, which is pretty cool. And actually, so going at that speed, by the way, I sort of calculated how long Mole would consider himself as taking to go to Alpha Centauri, our nearest star system. And that would be about 0.3 seconds. He would do it in about 0.3 seconds. So yeah, going pretty fast, but doable. I thought it was quite interesting.
Okay,
carry on.
Carry on.
Right.
What does Mole do?
Okay, so he's brought these home. So that night, his burrow was full of shimmering starlight. So you see what Mole has done now. So let me carry on reading. So Mole loved his bright new home so much so he wanted to stay there forever. Now, Mole is probably going to get what he wishes for here, quite frankly, because now what Mole appears to have done here is get the stars and shove them into his burrow. Okay, that's a lot of mass in a very small space, right? So typical burrow of a mole, right? Well, okay, it's about 5 centimeters sort of wide, about 4 centimeters high, and it can be up to about 70 meters long, actually. It's still not very big volume. It's still, only about 0.14 of a cubic meter. It's not a big volume. But what's the mass of the stars that he's trying to shove into this burrow? Okay, well, I go back to my little database. I had to actually calculate the mass of these stars based on their luminosity and all that sort of stuff. So I got there's a bit of an estimate, to be fair, but I think it's pretty accurate. It won't be miles off. And I reckon these stars, these 5,000 stars or so that we've got, their total mass is about 20,175 times the mass of the sun. It sounds reasonable, actually. It doesn't sound like a crazy number, given that you've got about 5,000 of them. So it's about 20,000 times the mass of the sun. So this is how much mass Mole is trying to get into his burrow. Well, okay. Suppose you try to cram that much mass into the smallest space possible. How small has it got to be before it collapses into a black hole? You calculate something called the Schwarzschild radius, which is the size of the event horizon of a mass that big. And for this much mass, the Schwarzschild radius is about 59,000 kilometers. So that means you cannot cram this amount of mass into a space less than roughly 59,000 kilometers in radius. You just can't. Otherwise, it's going to turn into a black hole. So not only can Mole not get this into his burrow, or if he does, he's going to start turning his burrow into a black hole. He's actually going to turn the Earth into a black hole, right? Because the Earth is only about 6,000 kilometers in radius, right? So trying to cram all this stuff into a small region in and around the Earth, eventually you're going to start creating a black hole that's going to swallow the whole Earth. So that's pretty reckless behavior by Mole, I would say.
So you couldn't even fit all these stars into the Earth?
No.
No.
The best you can do is create a black hole which is about sort of 10 times the size of the Earth. That's the best you could do. That's Mole's best tactic. So yeah, so what's going to happen next, Mole? So he wanted to stay there forever. Right, well, let's think about this.
In his black hole.
He's now in a black hole, so maybe he's going to stay there forever, but actually not necessarily, okay? He's in this black hole now. Is he going to stay there forever? No, because remember, black holes radiate. They give off a type of, when you apply quantum mechanics to the edge of a black hole, you realize that they're not as black as they seem. They give off this radiation, which is named after Stephen Hawking. So they give off Hawking radiation. So there is a time it takes for this black hole to evaporate, okay? It's quite a long time, though, right? So this black hole is going to take about 10 to the 80 years to evaporate.
10 to the 80, that's a familiar number.
It's a number of particles in the universe. That's why you remember it. But that's a total coincidence. It's just this, complete coincidence. But yeah, so it's got about 10 to the 80 years for this black hole to evaporate. So Mole could get out of this black hole that he's created rather recklessly in 10 to the 80 years. However, he's not going to get out as a mole. He's likely going to come out as just Hawking radiation, which is not great. But as the days went by, he started to miss his favourite rock. So one evening, he popped his head out of his molehill and saw nothing. The sky was dark. Well, it's not really a surprise, is it? Because he's created a black hole. And also, he's not getting out. Actually, so I also wondered, what? So we say he could get out of the black hole after 10 to the 80 years as Hawking radiation. What's the universe going to look like then? That stage of the universe, very far future we're talking about. And the universe is going to be black hole dominated then. There's going to be an era between 10 to the 40 and basically Google years when the universe is just dominated by black holes. All the stuff has fallen into black holes. Some of the black holes will have radiated away. The smaller ones will have done. Larger ones will still be radiating. But the universe is going to be black hole dominated. So actually the sky is going to be pretty black, right? Because there's going to be no stars shining. They've all been swallowed by black holes. Yeah, well, we carry on. So Deer stood in the clearing with tears in her eyes. Where are all the stars, she said. Field Mouse is not happy, by the way. Field Mouse shook his head sadly. My children love to stargaze while I sing their bedtime lullaby. They will be so sad. I hope Mole's feeling guilty. The stars help me find my way, said Fox. Where can they be, sighed Bear. I have flown far and high, said Owl. The stars are gone. So I presume that Owl is saying that she's flown 786 million light years, which seems a bit of an exaggeration, but we'll move on from that. Mole felt terrible. He didn't know the other animals loved the stars as much as he did. He scurried into the trees, hiding himself away. Mole walked deeper and deeper into the forest. What had he done? Then Mole saw something glinting through the trees. A star lay in a puddle, its light faded and dull. Could it be his special shooting star? Mole bent close. Oh, how I wish I had never taken the stars, he whispered. I didn't whisper that, did I? Anyway, the stars began to twinkle and ladders appeared. So the ladders are back. So he must have had to go somewhere else for the rest of the ladders now because he's used up all the carbon on Earth for his original set of ladders. Mole didn't think twice. He rushed back to the clearing, the star lighting his way. I'm sorry, he cried. I took the stars. I wanted them for myself. But now I know the stars belong to everyone. I'm going to put them back. Okay, so I think this is where we have to start thinking about this again now, right? So we've already established that he's created a black hole, and that black hole is going to take 10 to the 80 years to evaporate. Okay, so Mole ain't getting out for a long time. And when he does get out, the universe is now going to be black hole dominated with barely any stars in it at all. All the stars are swallowed by black holes. Okay, now those black holes will evaporate themselves after about a Google years. So there's nothing really to see. The universe is just a dull and boring place of Hawking radiation. just cold and miserable. And it's a heat death of the universe, essentially. If Mole really wants to bring the stars back and wants to be able to look up at the sky again and see the stars, I think he's going to have to wait for a Poincare recurrence. I think that's the only option. Whenever you have a finite system, you always get back to where you started from. So for example, I take a pack of cards. So there's a finite number of arrangements for a pack of cards. If I shuffle the cards enough, I'll eventually get back to the original order of the cards. It'll take many, many, many shuffles, but I will get there. And it's the same, you think about gases in a room. So you put all the gases in the corner of a room and they move around and there's this random movement of the gas particles. Eventually, after a very, very long time, they will, at some point, end up back in the far corner of the room. That will happen. Okay, so you always get this recurrence in a finite system. And we do believe our universe is a finite system. It's to do, we know this because we can look at the entropy of our universe. We understand that it's finite and we think it's finite. And so therefore it's a finite system. And so it has a Poincare recurrence where it will get back to any initial point. Okay, so if Mole wants to get back to his starting point, which is the stars there, which is the only way I think he can do it, he's going to have to wait for it. I think this is exceeding a Mole lifetime, by the way. 10 to the 10 to the 122 years. So 10 to the 10 to the 122 years. So an astonishingly long time. That's the order of magnitude that Mole's going to have to wait before he gets his stars back and, you know, makes up for his error. Yeah, long time.
Mole star.
Mole star.
Bit flawed.
Bit flawed, yeah. But not entirely. The ladders were fine, right? The ladders were found.
Here's a fiendish puzzle from the clever people at Jane Street, custom made for today's video. You have to place 2 and only 2 stars in each row, column and section of this grid. No 2 stars can directly neighbour each other either, even diagonally. If you can crack it, the stars will then mark out the letters to solve this riddle. What would happen if Mole didn't put all the stars back in the galaxy? I'll put a link to the puzzle below this video so you can click straight through to it. And while you're on the Jane Street website, why not check out the amazing opportunities they have to work with them in offices all around the world. Our thanks to Jane Street for sharing our love for impossibly big numbers, puzzles, and reaching for the stars.
Let me ask you one more question. If people really enjoy big numbers and they enjoy books, what book should they buy?
Oh, well, they should buy Fantastic Numbers and Where to Find Them, which is my book.
You've written a book about big numbers?
I have written a book about big numbers.
You kept that secret?
Yeah, I don't tell anybody about it. Yeah, it's got all the numbers, all your favourite numbers in Brady. It's got like a Googleplex. It's got Graham's number and Tree 3. It's got all our favourites. It's got some small numbers as well, by the way.
I know it was released in the UK. It's a real pity it hasn't been released in America.
No, it has been released in America, Brady.
What? It's out in America
It's
too?
out in America. It's out everywhere.
Oh, wow.
You can go. It doesn't look like it's in America. It looks a bit different, but it's still there. And it's the same name, Fantastic Numbers. Yeah, you can get it you can get it online, or you can get it in, sort of Barnes and Noble, for example, those sorts of places. So.
I wonder if there will be a link in the video description.